Tariffs zero-sum game. How it's going to affect the United States? Well, today we discuss. Well, the topic du jour in economics, in basically the whole world, is tariffs. Yes, we know tariffs, we know what they are. Let's put here the definition, just in case. And the main issue is the effects that we are having right now, since that we are on a tariffs trade war, dilemma, as you want to call it, and they are affecting worldwide economics, just the announcements and not the full implementation of such tariffs. Also, there is this buzzword that the tariffs are gonna create a recession worldwide, and we covered that last week. But yes, since the performance of the markets worldwide, we also have to cover that as well. Again, but we are gonna answer that later. Well, first, let's yet again define our position with tariffs. Tariffs are basically taxes, so they are bad for economics. However, tariffs are good for, let's say, negotiation tools amongst different states and their trade relationship. Very good on that. Now, of course, if you're a Trump supporter, you love tariffs. It's the most beautiful word in the dictionary. And if you're an anti-Trump, you hate tariffs. And of course, by the way, everyone should hate tariffs, even if you are a Trump supporter. Anyways, now, Trump has a particular, let's say, tactic of negotiating with other states in order to get what he wants using retaliatory tariffs. Other thing that Trump has in his favor when he negotiates using tariffs is that the United States has the largest private consumption market in the world by far, and basically shared with China. So everyone wants to do business with the United States within reasonable conditions. Now, some may argue that the conditions are not being reasonable recently. What happens is that the United States, the synergy, and I've said this many times, actually, I think the best thing about the United States and everything else trickles down is that has the best synergy in order to do business, the way the capitals move, the banking system, also the availability of different goods and services at a reasonable price. Very good on that. Now, the biggest drawback about doing business in the United States is the xenophobic policies that Trump also has a lot of xenophobic policies, and probably the most xenophobic president in recent history. And that also creates, because when you want a free market capitalism, you want free movement of capital, goods and services, and people. But with, of course, Trump is not the case. First on the people side, but apparently also on the goods, services, and financial side, apparently is not faring as well. Very good on that. Still, the United States has this privileged market that most countries, most companies want to do business with. Now, a good thing about the tariffs is that Trump wants to implement a reciprocity regarding the tariffs that the other countries put to the United States. However, this is not a zero-sum game. But what happens is, and in many countries, they are not completely capitalistic. Many times, the tariffs are put in detriment of the domestic market, on the domestic citizen, in favor of a handful of businessmen, usually close to the politicians, in order to have an unfair advantage against the rest of the market within a local market. So at the end result is that you have first inflation. The products are high on price and low on quality most of the time on this restrictive market. And for instance, that used to happen in Argentina a lot, usually, and that's what we know as crony capitalism. The capitalism where only the people close to the government are the ones who benefit, in detriment on the rest of the real businessmen and the population overall, the consumer population. So many times, the argument of many Trump supporters, if why the other countries if tariffs are so bad, what other countries also raise tariffs? Because they are bad for their citizens, but not for their politicians and the businessmen, the crony businessmen close to the politicians. And that's what happens. Now, I'm not saying that Trump wants to just favor the businessmen close to him, the crony capitalistic thing. I don't think that is the case. Of course, some people will benefit within the United States with this particular approach. Now, regarding the tariffs from the rest of the world, we can see here this map, the different tariffs that the other countries all over the world implement against U.S. products. And you can see the colors. Depending on the color, is bigger the spread. So when you have a market that is the closest thing to a free market capitalism that we have in the world, that is not perfect, but it is what it is the United States. The rest of the world is actually doing a bad thing. And now Trump wants to, let's say, fight this particular mindset that the rest of the world has. So one thing is that Trump is using these tariffs in order to negotiate to other countries in order to keep a fair game, which I think is a great thing. If that is the end game for Trump, those are his intentions. And also, that's the end result. Let's see what happens. But the other thing is that Trump wants to bring back manufacturing to U.S. soil in order to create jobs and so on. And that's when I have my doubts. Right now, on the status quo right now, manufacture in the United States is very, very expensive. The human capital is way more expensive compared to the rest of the world, especially countries in Southeast Asia, something like that. Also, let's say the benefits, the bureaucracy on how things work in the United States regarding mass consumption manufacturing for low-end goods. And that's, I'm talking, like stationery, paper clips, things like that. So things that are very cheap to produce. And the best, is best for business to let a country with a lower salary to implement the industrial capacity in order to produce such products. Now, there are other issues regarding the kinds of product that you cannot elaborate in the United States. For instance, like soft commodities and agricultural products that only grow in other places, like the outside of the United States. They are very far. There is no way you can produce them within the United States, like certain fruits and vegetables and spices and things like that. So it is biological impossible to manufacture, at least on a larger scale, within the United States. So you have one reason to that, the different climates, different soils, things like that. So you are going to struggle with that. Now, other issue, yet again, with this particular trade war, is that other countries, let's use the best case scenario regarding Trump. Let's say you're a Trump supporter. And let's say that Trump actually wants the best for the United States and the United States citizen. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm not saying it's not the case. Just putting this particular scenario, particular condition. In most countries, that won't be the case. So let's say he puts 100% tariffs to another country. That's bad for US consumers, and also it's bad for the foreign exporters. Cool on that. So it's a lose-lose game. Maybe Trump is doing it in order to negotiate with the other country in order to reduce the tariffs for US goods on the same country that are 100%. The other country won't do it because that is going to hurt the local producer in a foreign market. It's going to hurt the foreign. It's hurting actually because on this hypothetical scenario, 100% tariffs for a US product already does exist. So it's hurting the local population, it's hurting the local producer, but the politician, usually the crony politician abroad on this, hypothetical foreign country, does not get affected. And that's where Trump most likely knows this on this random hypothetical scenario, but how will affect both his citizens, the US citizens, and the citizens of the foreign country. And that's where you are going to have an issue. And let's see what happens on those cases, because those cases are happening right now. Other issue that you have with tariffs is depending on, I'm talking worldwide tariffs, not only in the US, is that you want to protect a particular industry, just a particular industry that is the industry or a handful of industries that a particular country has a competitive advantage. Let's say Saudi Arabia, just for the sake of the conversation. I don't know if they have tariffs or an import ban on foreign crude oil, because that's their main product. They have a competitive advantage on the crude oil industry. So in order to protect that particular industry, that's the cornerstone of Saudi's economy, they put a tariffs for just those particular products against, foreign oil producers. But for the rest, they have, quote unquote, free market capitalism. So in many cases, the tariffs on certain countries are going to be for certain different industries in order to protect such key industries within at any given economy. Now that we understand the dynamics, just a quick, let's say, Reader's Digest of how tariffs work. Let's go on how it can, it will, it might cause a recession. Just on this couple of weeks, we've seen the S&P and the main stock indexes just collapsing around 80%. Here is the S&P, here is the Dow, here is the Nasdaq. Also, a company like Nvidia was the highest company regarding market cap. Now has lost $1 trillion on market capitalization. And also Bitcoin, things like that are going down. Yet again, I said last week that of course the economy is on a boom since after COVID, with all of the spending and the inflation and things like that. And the stock market is like a product, like everything else, also is on inflation. So a stock is not like the stock is overperforming or doing excellent. It's just, inflated like every other product. And again, now, this particular tendency that we had, let's say, on the past administration, that the economy was not doing good, on the intangibles, I mean, if you feel it, if you live in the US and worldwide, the economy is not doing good regarding, the quality of the jobs, the income, the inflation, covering housing, and so on and so on and so on. So it's on real terms, on mainstream terms, is not a good economy. But, on the quote-unquote fundamentals of the economy, like the stock market, the unemployment rate that is very low, and things like that. Of course, it quote unquote gives a mirage, an illusion that the economy is doing actually good. So I use the analogy of a Jenga tower, that on the past few years, that Jenga tower has been very unstable, is close to collapsing. And right now, Trump, his Jenga move is putting tariffs. And regardless if this rhetoric that he's going to implement it or not, well, what I see happening is that the last move that will collapse this particular Jenga tower is actually Trump's tariff. So we might have a recession, most likely in the US and worldwide, or something similar. But and Trump actually will be, let's say, he will be the Mariano Rivera of the recession. So he will be the closer. But that game was, way over before he appeared. And that's what I think is going to happen. The economy is going to collapse. And the market is going to collapse as well. It's collapsing right now. Not because it's Trump's fault, it's because just despite Trump. And this is just the last trigger that you needed in order to cause such, let's say, collapse. But I would call it not as much as a collapse, rather a correction that the economy needs. Actually, the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, said that the market is on a detox, something like that. Let's put here the actual quote. And that's what I see. So I agree with the Secretary Bessent. I think we are on a detox. And actually, I hope that happens in order to correct all of the bad investment and all of, the bad players that we have on the market. So that on that way, we avoid inflation. We correct the good things on the market. We keep the good things. We get rid of the bad things and so on. And we can go on our merry way in order to keep creating goods and services. Thank you for watching Continental Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. And if you want to work with us, continentalinsider.com. Thanks again, and have a nice day.